Hey everybody, I'm Garcia, and today I'm taking a look at the latest expansion to the cooperative dice game Elder Sign called Omens of the Pharaoh. In Omens of the Pharaoh, the players are going to be traveling together to Egypt, looking for powerful relics, ruins, in order to gather knowledge and power and stop the Ancient Ones from awakening and destroying the world. If you are familiar with the last few expansions to Elder Sign, then you are largely familiar with this one as well. And I'm talking here, of course, about Omens of Ice, is a similar idea, Omens of the Deep, and now Omens of the Pharaoh. And these all have the core play of Elder Sign when it originally came out, but they add a new location, of course, and they also add this idea of multiple stages where you play from one deck of encounters, and at some point you travel, or something changes, or you further the story, and now you are drawing those main encounter cards from a secondary deck, from a stage 2 deck. This one also does that, but it's going to have some new cards that are powerful relics that you'll be able to add to your items. It's going to have some chambers that you are possibly going to be able to unlock and enter and deal with that, as well as a very clever concept of gathering goods for your expedition and gaining game-long powerful effects. So let me show you how this works. We'll come on back after that. I'm not going to be showing you here how to play Elder Sign. Go check out a video for that, our video for Elder Sign. But let me show you how this works. We'll come on back after that, and I'll tell you what I think of this expansion for the base game. So here's just about everything you are going to get with the expansion of the game. Besides that, you're going to have a few new monster tokens, 8 of them, that you'll add to your own monster bag. And you are going to set up the game most of the same way you set up the original game. You can pick one of the new characters here. You have a few of them. One of the new ancient ones. You are going to shuffle in these allies into your ally deck. You'll use only the new deck of events there. And then you'll also add this new deck of cards to your, common items, unique items, things like that. So you'll have a new deck of cards there. Those are called relics. Besides that, you've got 2 decks here that represent 2 locations in the game. So you've got Cairo, and you start in Cairo. This is basically your gate or your home board, if you want to think of it that way. But at some point in the game, you can flip that over and travel to a new location and use the second deck for that. So we're going to start over here on Cairo. And to set up the game, besides all of the regular setup that you would normally do, you are going to shuffle these, stage 1 here. So we'll just move everything else aside for now. You are going to shuffle these. You'll play out 3 face up of these and 3 face down. And those are going to be your starting locations. So you can do something like that. And then you are ready to begin. Besides that, you also have these cards here, the Dark Pharaoh cards. There's 4 of them, and special effects are going to bring them into the game as locations that you can visit as well. And they're sort of, superbly dangerous encounters, if you want to think of it that way. So the general flow of the game is largely the same as in the original game. You are going to move. You are going to visit one of these locations. You will interact with it. You will advance the clock. Bad things will happen. The difference being, in case you have not played any of the expansions that include this concept, and they all have except for the very first expansion, Unseen Forces. Everyone after that, including the Arkham expansion, Gates of Arkham, they all have this concept of visiting a location and interacting with the back of the card first, and then flipping it over and actually rolling dice and all of that. And they are normally, all of the ones so far, have been ranked also with a color on the back that tells you how dangerous it is likely to be. In this case, green, and yellow, green being the easiest, but we also have reds, especially here in the secondary deck, which are going to be much more challenging. And so that's all about the same, all right? Now, how do you travel from one location to another? You are going to have here on the board a new way to spend trophies, of course, and you can spend trophies to do all of the typical things, get common items, get unique items, gain allies, that sort of thing. You also can get relics now, and some of these cards will give you relics as well. And these are going to have new powers that allow you to add dice to your pool, even some that have already been excluded from your pool by failing rolls. Very nice stuff, and sometimes they have secondary powers as well. Really, really great new concept for a deck. But going back to this, whenever you want to flip over to the other side, you can advance the clock, and then you flip over to this side, and from that point on, every time you go to one of these and complete it, you will replace that card with the appropriate deck depending on where you currently are located, you know. So deck 1, deck 2 over here. So that's how you advance to the more dangerous spots, but also where you're going to find those Elder Signs. There's a lot more of them in this deck, and that's how you further your objective in the game. Besides that, a couple of things I want to highlight. Over here, we've got the Expedition board, and it has a few special powers available to the players, but right now they are all off. None of them work. Sometimes, however, some cards, such as this one, will give you one of these tokens. Tiny little token there, and you are going to put that on one of the spots on the expedition and turning it on. Some of them out here are constant powers. From that point on, you have a new special power for the rest of the game. Some of them, you'll actually cash in the token to do something, and this is amazing. Some of these powers are fantastic stuff. So for example, let me just read to you a couple of them. You have one here that says that at midnight, one investigator regains 1 sanity. And when the Ancient One awakens, then you discard that token. You have one that does the same thing for stamina. You have one that you discard when the Ancient One would attack, assuming it wakes up and attacks you, to skip its entire attack 1 time. And that is a huge bonus. You've got one that says discard this token before rolling to defeat a mask monster on your adventure. You know, discard this token at the start of your turn to flip the entrance card to the other side so you can travel without advancing the clock. Things like that. So a really, really neat idea there that you can get cool bonuses for throughout an entire adventure. Besides that, you also have these, as I said, that are going to come into play based on these cards. And then you'll just set those aside. You can visit them, interact with them, flip them over, and combat them. But besides that, there's some cool cards in this secondary deck in Stage 2 that are chambers. And chambers are going to have, let's find one here. There we go. There's a chamber. These chambers are going to have across the bottom, instead of text like the other ones usually do, it'll have a line of symbols. And on your turn, so let's say this was dealt with and I've got a chamber right there. At the start of your turn, you are going to, before you move, you can declare you want to move to that chamber. You take your dice, you roll your dice once. And if you can break into the chamber, meaning you get that combination, then you can visit that chamber and roll dice and interact with the other side. If you don't roll that, you have to move elsewhere, or you can stay where you are. So very cool. It definitely gives you a feeling of, like, you know, plundering tombs, breaking into these places that you normally would not have access to. You can spend extra dice if you want to get more dice for this roll, but it is still a single roll. And those dice, whether you break in or not, are lost to you. So you got to be careful about that, you know. Really enjoy this. It's very thematic, very interesting. And then lastly, I'll just go over the new deck of cards here, the Bad Stuff deck. These are going to normally not have really a lingering effect. They just simply have 2 effects, and they can be quite powerful, but sometimes they're really great cards also. So I like that. It definitely feels like the winds of time, the sands of fortune will be turning this way and that for you. So, for example, here we have one that says, each investigator discards all of his or her trophies, and investigators as a group gain 1 expedition token. Those are the expedition tokens. And then the second step is, each investigator loses 2 stamina. All right. Here we've got, add 1 Doom token to the Doom track on the baddie. Where's my baddie? Let's pick one. There they are. So add 1 Doom token to the Doom track. Then each investigator regains 2 sanity and 2 stamina. Great. And then you get to flip the entrance card. Then 1 investigator loses 2 stamina. So I love that this one really, it's very well tailored to having everyone gain something sometimes, but then having one player have to lose something, having you make these kinds of choices. Even down here, some of these powers, it's like, okay, well, someone can regain something. You players figure it out. I love putting that kind of power on the players themselves. It's very clever and interesting. Some of the new locations over here on the Doom track are the ones that bring into play, by the way, the Dark Pharaoh cards over here. So that's basically how the game goes. Explore, go to Cairo, flip this over and travel to farther off lands. Build up your expedition with new abilities and resources. Get those Elder Signs and break into these chambers. Try to get some good stuff out of them. Very thematic, very cool. So let's go back up top. Now that I've shown you sort of what's included in here, and let me tell you what else I think about this. Does it fit well into what they've been doing with the game? Does it bring a lot of new stuff? And I think it does, but does it all work well together? So here we go. I've always enjoyed Elder Sign. I always thought it was an engaging dice game, one that definitely I wanted to play and always did enjoy playing with fewer players rather than more. The game plays up to 7 or something ridiculous like that, but it always was way too long for playing with that many people, and there was a lot of downtime anyway because the interaction wasn't really there. I also thought originally the original Elder Sign was not a particularly thematic game. It just wasn't. But with expansions, they've really enhanced that, and the game has definitely gotten better for me. I enjoyed Gates of Arkham. That was an expansion that took you outside of the museum, which was the original setting, and let you walk around Arkham. And you could walk up to a place, have an idea of how dangerous it would be, just like in this one, and then flip the card over and see what happened. That was a cool twist. Well, all of these expansions here, Omens of Ice, Omens of the Deep, and now this one, have taken some of those concepts and taken them somewhere else, a new location, and added thematic bits and pieces that enhance your, just how involved you feel in the whole thing, the thematic involvement. So this one, I think, continues that trend. Let me break this down a little bit using my target audience system here, starting appropriately enough with thematic ties. I love the places that the Arkham mythos, the Lovecraftian mythos has gone. And the Egyptian locations I find very fascinating, And so Omens of the Pharaoh here gives me a really cool theme, and I like how they were able to add the expedition elements to it, the chambers that you can hopefully break into, the new relics, the new characters, the Dark Pharaoh stuff. That is all very cool. So thematically, this is very interesting and engaging to me. I definitely like it. The aesthetics are great. They've all been fantastic. This game has always had good artwork and good components, and this one continues that trend. So absolutely no complaints there. Replayability here is good, I think. I love the... it does feel like there is this point in the game where you sort of want to switch from just hanging out in Cairo and gathering supplies, getting a little bit stronger, furthering your expedition board, and move on to stage 2 so you can start actually getting some Elder Signs so you can try to win the game. So that's interesting, and it's never a very clear line where you should do that. You could even, jump back if you wanted to. So I like that. That adds to the replayability. The amount of cards in the game is going to add to the replayability. The new deck of relic cards, that's very cool, and I really enjoy those. So there is a lot of content here for an expansion. I think you're going to get a lot of play out of this one. The game length is fine. The game, I always have said, it's a little long for me, especially with more players, again. But I usually will play with 2 players, maybe 3, or solitaire. And I do enjoy this game solitaire, so if you are someone who likes solitaire gaming and you've never tried Elder Sign, well, as an aside here, give it a shot. But I would certainly say this doesn't alleviate the game being long unless you are being pummeled, and that's quite possible. So that's fine. The game length I don't have a problem with, really. It's the same as it's always been. Ease of play. The new stuff that they include in here, how difficult is it to understand and deal with? The new concepts that have been introduced are straightforward enough. This is not as tricky to sort of manage and understand what the thematic implications of things are as some of the other expansions that they've come out with. So this is a good one. And then lastly, tactics and strategy and luck and things like that. Yeah, there's going to be some of that. Yeah, this game is a dice game, and on top of that, you might you'll flip over a card, a Mythos card, and bad things are going to happen. Maybe good things will happen. Yes, this game has luck. But I think the settings that they've chosen for this entire line of expansions, I think the new little bits that they've been able to incorporate into each, like the expedition board for this one, and some of the other ones they have, Omens of Ice, they had the weather system. There was this really cool weather system where you were avoiding storms and things like that. Very neat. So each of those little things they've been able to sprinkle into each of these expansions, I think enhance the involvement, the strategy, the ability to, what you have to react to, the tactics there, So I really enjoy that. And while it is, yes, a lucky game, you should go into it knowing that there is a nice amount of tactics and reacting to what's going on. So I enjoy this one. I think it's just as good as the other ones. I'm not going to say it's better than the other ones in the line here. It's just as good as they are. But those are good, and I enjoyed them very much. So this is good stuff. This one's going to get a seal of approval from me, a very strong one. I would certainly recommend you check it out if you enjoy this theme, this setting in your Arkham Horror, etc. stuff. Then check this one out, certainly. And if you've never tried Elder Sign and you want a fun co-op dice game, then try that out. And then you'll have a bunch of expansions you can go out and explore, including Omens of the Pharaoh. So there you go. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.